wherever you are in the diaspora. My name is Janette Bulkan. I'm Guyanese. I'm here representing the Oil and Gas Governance Network, OGGN, which is a 501c3 company incorporated, registered in New York. And today I'm delighted to be able to have a conversation, a gaffe, with two of the stalwarts of Red Thread, a women's non-governmental organization here in Guyana. With me today in the studio are Joy Marcus and Wintress White. Welcome to you both, Joy and Wintress.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
So I thought today I would begin by asking you about the floods which we've been experiencing in Guyana since Easter, floods are a constant, but heavy rains and floods from Easter, intensely so in the last, let's say, 10 days. And what has been your experiences personally and in your communities?
All right, so for me, I live in Georgetown, and anybody who knows Georgetown know that as soon as the rain smile, some areas are flooded. Where I live in Section K, Camberville, but we also experience flooding. So the yard that I live in, while I have the flood at the back of the yard, the sides of the yard, so there are many days that I can't go around the yard because of that water, but also the bridge, the water covers the bridge. There are times when the road would be covered. For the past couple of days, we have not had the...
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our listeners in Guyana and wherever you are in the diaspora. My name is Janette Bulkan. I'm Guyanese. I'm here representing the Oil and Gas Governance Network, OGGN, which is a 501c3 company incorporated, registered in New York. And today I'm delighted to be able to have a conversation, a gaffe, with two of the stalwarts of Red Thread, a women's non-governmental organization here in Guyana. With me today in the studio are Joy Marcus and Wintress White. Welcome to you both, Joy and Wintress.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
So, I thought today I would begin by asking you about the floods which we've been experiencing in Guyana since Easter, floods are a constant, but heavy rains and floods from Easter, intensely so in the last, let's say, 10 days. And what has been your experiences personally and in your communities?
All right, so for me, I live in Georgetown, and anybody who knows Georgetown know that as soon as the rain smile, some areas are flooded. Where I live in Section K, Camberville, but we also experience flooding. So the yard that I live in, while I have the flood at the back of the yard, the sides of the yard, so there are many days that I can't go around the yard because of that water, but also the bridge, the water covers the bridge. There are times when the road would be covered. For the past couple of days, we have not had the whole road covered, but the bridges were covered in water. Now, I personally can't step out in that dirty water. So, what I've been doing is when I use a taxi, I ask the taxi to drive into the yard, like back in the yard. Now, that is a problem because when the taxi back in the yard and I get into the car and I drove out, what happens to the gate? The place is left unsecured because I am not stepping into that dirty water. For many reasons, I've had experience of rashes and so on from stepping into dirty water. So I'm one of the person that try not to step out once the place is flooded. To be honest, I have not gone to the markets because I am not going into those dirty water. I passed areas and I saw some of the streets are deep in water, shin deep in water, and I'm looking at some of the homes and seeing how much water is in people's home. And I can relate to having flood in my home because I've experienced water right up to my bed already. And coming from Linden, I used to live in Linden before I started living in Georgetown, so I know what that is, and I really feel it for people. I saw a video on Facebook with a mother showing her home, and it was the same thing, the water right up to the bed. It took me back to when I was experiencing that kind of flooding living in Linden. I also saw what is happening in Region 9.
So Region 9 is the Rupununi?
Yes. And so it's not just Georgetown, but this flooding is affecting a lot of us in different areas. And I think that we really need to work on our drainage. I have to say that we also have to take some responsibility, but that should not take the responsibility off of the people who are responsible, whether it's the town council, the city council, the public works ministry, that they're not doing enough to clear the drains. Most of these drains needs desilting. I've seen in areas where the drains are collapsing. Plus, these road works also are widening and narrowing some of the drainage. So if we do that, what is going to happen to the water? Right, how the water doesn't have enough space to flow. We've seen that with all the construction work that is going on, some of the people are blocking up the drains with bringing in the sand and the stones and so on, and they're blocking up the drains. And those are things I think the people in authority should ensure that those things don't happen. And when you're dealing with road construction and so on, you have to take into consideration how this is affecting the people, because it's not just about roads. You can't think about road and don't think about people.
Joy, thanks. Before we go into Wintress, when you mentioned you haven't gone to the market for a while, for some weeks, is that Border Market?
Well, both markets, because
name them please. Name them please.
Both Border Market and Stabrook Market because I'm afraid. What I do, if I hear people going to the market, I piggyback on that. I'm not gonna lie about that. I piggyback on it. I'd say, listen, when I go to the market, just give me a call and let me know how green's selling. So that is why I would know the price. Let me know how green's selling, and I will ask you, you know, if you have enough money to pick up this from me, and I'll give it back to you. Or if the person is passing my way, I would give them the money and say, we can buy a card into this. But also, I have the opportunity of being able to buy greens from, there's a place on Sheriff Street that sells everything that the market sells. And so I also have that opportunity of being able to go there, but not everybody could have that option.
During the flooding.
Yeah.
Thank you, Joy.
I've seen videos of what is happening in the market, especially border market. So Joy Marcus is not going into the market, and Joy Marcus even afraid to buy greens because you don't know what is contaminated with the flood waters.
Thank you, Joy. Wintress, and you want to add about your experiences of flooding and the communities you live in and are familiar with?
Okay. Yeah, I live in Stevedore housing scheme. It's a working class community. And every time the rain falls, our road gets flooded. And it's bad because in that area it's sewage and it's dirty water coming up, and you have to put your feet in those dirty water. And it's not good. Sometimes it's come till up under my steps. And I'm very, very scared because my area has snakes. Next door to me is a empty lot that's taken over with bushes. And I'm very, very scared. The other day they had a snake right under by me, and I was frightened. It is anything like right in the snake. And then next door, you have people doing dog food. So I'm dealing with not only snake, I'm dealing with rats. So rat in that water is dangerous. It's dangerous for health and everything. And I have 2 grandchildren. I'm very, very scared of them. And then not only bad when the rain starts, when the flood starts, I have to deal with cockroaches coming out from various people places. So it's really scary. And that put my mind back to 2005 when we had the flood. I was living in Pleasance, and my landlady had told me that she never get flood yet. She had high. And so I was standing up to the front door and debating whether this water will come in because of what she told me. And then when I looked for the water to come from the front, the water came from the back.
I had the same experience once.
Back. And this water come like, it come in a gush. It didn't come slowly, it come right away. So it's a good thing I put up certain things, because although she told me that, I decided to pick up carpet and all of that, but I didn't get to save a lot of things because my old household thing was damaged, even clothes was damaged. And then had to come, the scary part, I was staying by Joy, and the scary part of it is that I got to come and check what's going on in the house and so forth. So it's me and she wading through dirty water, high to the chest. And at one point the boy said, look, I don't want that, there's a snake. So since I hear snake, I start panicking, but it's just big mind keep me out. So that is what I am thinking. And then they say the leptospirosis. We didn't even know. We just keep going, but afterwards it come on the news that people taken in with that kind of disease. So it's really scary. And when you look at Georgetown, right? And we know Georgetown is below the sea level. When you look at Georgetown and see all those monstrous buildings going up, what is it doing? And then we have so many road construction, as Joy said, and I want to know who is the engineers, because what they do keep doing is narrowing the trenches, and no proper thought about how this water can drain, no proper thought on how the water draining out. So I just feel it's one big confusion after confusion, and then this climate change that we're experiencing is going to get even worse. And people like to say, Linden where Joy come from don't flood, but I see Linden flood. I saw it flood, and Linden is a high place.
So Linden is a community in the hilly sand and clay area,
yeah,
about 80 miles south of Georgetown.
But Janet, just look at what's happening on the highway. I just saw a few
That's
days
the Linden
ago.
Highway.
The Linden Highway, the amount of water. Looking at that video and seeing those vehicles coming through that water at Splashman area was very, I was not there, but I was scared. I was scared for those people. And then my sister called me to say, she praying because she was traveling down, so she had to pass through that water too. But I was looking at that and I was scared for those people. The flood, we have to think about people who have children.
Yeah.
Think about the elderly, because the flood, having those people shut in and can't move. If you have elderly people living by themselves and don't have anybody to help them, you got to think about what is going to happen to them, coming down in that water. People bridge cover, you don't know where you're putting your feet, right? And the injuries that people could get. Think about people with children and those little children, and how it's suffering. I know what that is because I've been through that, and I know what it is. So I really empathize with people who are experiencing it. For being in a house with water in your house for days, that is not healthy.
And so I just think about it. The water breeds mosquitoes, and mosquitoes breed all kinds of diseases. Yeah?
Yeah.
We used to say that Georgia got malaria, but now we can't tell if Georgia have malaria or not, because lots of people never go in the interior and have malaria.
Yeah,
So
so I
is
will
that-
look at the pipes and the water that we come through the taps and so on, because there are other diseases that you have to cater for, typhoid and all of that, if we have leakages and people don't know,
Yeah.
and that flood water is seeping into those taps and it's coming to our houses and we're using it. So
Yeah.
This is on a
So, thank you, Joy and Wintress. If you've just joined us, this is Oil Talk by OGGN, the Oil and Gas Governance Network, and our guests today are Joy Marcus and Wintress White of Red Thread. We've just been speaking about the flood, constant. Both of you mentioned going back to 2005, not just Georgetown, but the Linden Highway, which is the main artery going into the interior, Region 9 affected by flooding, and all in the context of the boasts by our leaders that we have the highest GNP, the GDP, gross domestic product in South America, and yet this huge suffering. So today we'd like to talk to you about hear from you about the March 7th Speak Out on Oil and Gas, which Red Thread organized with A Fair Deal for Guyana. And to ask you, what was the purpose or the thinking behind having this Speak Out on Oil and Gas in March this year?
All right, I am going to go through some logistics and leave Joy to do some more talking.
Speak a little louder, please, Wintress.
I don't really have a large voice, the older I get, is the more soft the voice gets. I don't know
Okay.
if it was age or what. All right, so when we decided to do the Speak Out on Oil and Gas, in our minds we saying that, maybe this thing would not have been successful because of how the landscape in Guyana is now, with people very scared to come out and talk and support. We in our organizing, we find that people are not coming forward as before. So we do that. We went into that with two minds. But because we're grassroots and we know that we had the privilege of hearing and learning about oil and gas from an expert who broke it down for us in simple language, that we know that we wanted to have all the grassroots people like we to know the same thing that we know, because of the truth. When we hear Guyana was drilling for oil and gas, we had no time with it. But after the rapid drilling, then we said, nah, this had to have ramifications to grassroots people. And that's why we put ourselves in a position to know about it. So the organizing was very, very difficult, because we not only had to organize on the ground, we had to organize through the internet and support. We had to go into communities to get people out and support. And we really had to do lots and lots and lots of talking and persuading to get people to come out. So that in itself was a real hard work, to get people to even come out and listen to you. In one case, I went to Better Hope, people just watching me through the blind.
So Better Hope is on the east coast of Demerara.
yes.
Yeah, it's predominantly in low community.
An Indian community.
Yeah. So, but we had good luck because on the day of the organizing, what we kept in our heads is our coordinator telling we bump on chair, then we can know if we successful. So we work, really work. Joy was dealing with accommodation and logistic. I was dealing with logistic and be on the ground. So even when we had to do our presentation, and what we normally do, we prepare ourselves. So even on the night at 12 o'clock, I said, Joy, I can't do this. Joy said, Wintress, you got it. I said, no, girl, can't do it. I'm tired. Yes, she will come out in the morning. Well, in my head, I already say I brush she off because in the morning now, I try to wangle my way out by calling up two of our coordinators to tell them I really can't make it. But then I had the coordinator to tell them, I can help you. So you know what? I decided, nah, I'm going to come out and let Joy do it with Joy. Because I'm more comfortable with her. So me and Joy managed to put it together, and that on that day, and I said, wow, look how perseverance can get us. So on the day of the conference, when I look around, or when we look around and see so much people, wow. I smile like a cat.
Yeah.
I smile, I really, really smile. I said, yes, hard work paid off. So I'm going to leave Joy now to go through some of the thing, and I will be joining.
Yeah, so Joy is going to tell us a little bit more about the March 7th event co-organized by Red Thread and a fair deal for Guyana.
So the aim was to, like Wintress mentioned, to share the information that we have learned about oil and gas, because we know as Grassroots, people are focusing on surviving, and a lot of times what people don't have time to think about these things, and when the propaganda that is being spread about how our lives are going to be better, that is what people are focusing on. And we've had experience of hearing people, including vendors, shop clerk, let me make a start drilling for oil so my life could be better. So everybody was depending on this betterment. And we know that, you know, from looking at things and from what we've learned, that this oil is really not going to be better for us, but of course for us, especially poor people. And we wanted to hear from people who were expecting to have this better life, you know, what they were thinking, what they were feeling, and we also wanted to share what we know, and if they know anything about the oil and gas industry and what is happening. And so we organized so that we could share and learn from each other. So we had a number of presenters, grassroots women, we had a few middle class persons, because this whole this thing, it catered for not only women but male as well. So we had grassroots women and men, we had legal personnel, we had activists, and so the whole session was about people sharing what they know and sharing their experiences. So for example, we had a single mother of 2 children who spoke about the economic crisis in this oil-rich country and how she is struggling to survive with her 2 children. We had fisher folk there, and you know, she shared about what was happening with fish and how the fisher folks, you know, had to be going out farther, spending more money, more time out at sea, but having a smaller catch, and how some of them went out of business because of this. Because the thing with the fish, there's the areas that are being affected with fish, it's not just about the fishermen, it's also about the vendors, it is also the cleaners who are cleaning the fish at the place, and it is also the buyers. Now, because they're having smaller catches and they're spending more money out there, of course their price have to increase. When their price increase, then we can't afford to buy the fish the way we used to buy it before, right? So they're running at a loss, and it's a loss for all of us. And I remember, and I smiled when the woman said, so when y'all here, we come with a price for fish, because she was explaining the experience. And then she ended by saying, when y'all here, we come with a price of fish, don't cry about the price. It's either you could eat the fish or you can't eat the fish, but we can't do anything more about that. And I smiled at that because I understand exactly where she was coming from. And so it's not just about one person being affected, but it's a chain. It's a lot of people being affected by it. We also had a small miner sharing our experience about being a miner and the pressures that small miners are facing, and she's comparing that to what is happening to what she called the giants. And she did make reference of, you know, the things that ExxonMobil and other my companies are getting away with, that small miners are being penalized for. So, and I think the whole sharing of those experiences was a rich conversation happening about how poor people are really struggling to survive. We had the representatives from the Covenant on the east bank of the Marara, who shared their experience about how they fought to protect their community and how they won, which is a plus for us, because when one person wins, everybody wins, right? We had the residents from the Houston area sharing their experience about the Schlumberger, the waste facility at Houston, and how they fought for that as well. And then we had like lawyers talking about the various court cases that people have taken, you know, these Exxon and so on to court, and give us an idea of what was happening, because a lot of us didn't even know about the court cases, first of all, or much less to know what was happening. Listen, when people are struggling to survive, you know, people say, oh, they're lazy, they can't read, they can't. You really don't have the time for that. So people sometimes can't even buy newspaper, because that newspaper money, it got to come in for a pound of flour or something else. And because you're not in that situation, a lot of times you wouldn't understand. But what you try to do is to bash the poor people.
Who is bashing? Who is doing the bashing?
The people who have it all.
Who have it all?
Including, you know, our people in high offices would bash the poor people. Oh, they're lazy, they don't have a... We are not the cause of us being poor. If you have the majority of your population poor, you can't blame it on the poor people. That is when you're supposed to be looking to see that something is wrong with your system, right? So we had we got an understanding of what is happening with the court cases.
Joy,
how many they have, about 11 court cases so far.
Joy and Wintress, before we go on to the, let's say, the issues, were you able to get in your this Speakers on Oil and Gas any representatives from outside of the coast, or just it was just for coastal?
Oh, so no. Well, we had people from, we tried to invite people from all 10 regions of Guyana. But what we had present in that space were people from regions 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9, and 10.
So just for everyone to, for me to explain to Guyanese who may not know the regional system, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are the coastal regions. 2 beginning from about just part of the from Charity, yes, and a bit I think even on the other bank of the no, not Essequibo, Pomeroon River. 2, yes, both the left bank as well, and 6 up to the border with Suriname. 7, so 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are the coastal regions. Region 1 is the far northwest, or the northwest, which is this vast area. I think you mentioned you weren't able to get anyone from there.
Get from region 1 and region 6.
And for people, anyone who doesn't live in Guyana now, I can tell you that the cost of transportation is stratospheric. That's what I can say. Is taxis on the coast, minibuses on the coast. Well, minibuses are the cheapest. We can talk about those a little later, and their struggles, the struggles of minibuses. But travel through by boat, by air travel in Guyana is magnitudes greater than the equivalent travel in many other parts of the world. So I'm really delighted to hear you were able to get representatives from coastal regions as well as Region 7, which is the both the Madhya area, no, that's
Region 7 is
Region 8
Bartica.
Bartica area,
Yes.
Region 8,
Yes,
the Madhya area,
Bartica.
and Rupununi Region 9,
Yes.
and Region 10,
Linden.
Linden
Yeah.
as well.
And I want to say something that even though people are interested in having these conversations and participating and so on, even though there's a fear of really standing up, but if we were not able to, one of the things that we did, because we, as poor people, we take into consideration every little thing that poor people have to deal with, right? And so we ensure to get enough to provide for transportation for people to come from the different areas, and also to take care of accommodation and meals and so on, right? The thing is that we wanted people to know about oil and gas and what is happening, but we also wanted people to hear from people what is happening with them in the various areas, and also to talk about what individuals, what organizations and activists were doing in resilience to this whole oil and gas, because we want people to understand that we can't just sit back quietly and allow these things to happen. And while some of the, like for example the court cases, while some of the court cases were thrown out, or people would say, oh, you lost the case, because people keep saying, I don't know, we're wasting time for nothing is going to come out of it. It is not true that nothing is going to come out of it. First of all, those court cases has forced institutions and the powers that be in some ways to step up their game, right? So even if you don't get a win-win, as people would say, the fact that you still have a win, because the fact that now you have to, there's certain things that they have to take into consideration, for example, you know, Exxon, for example, the EPA and so on, it is a win-win. We look at the Schlumberger thing, the whole thing had the people had to pack up and leave. So we see that there are some wins. So even though some of the cases thrown out,
Still have a
the
win side.
fact that you put it out there is a win.
Yeah.
Right? And so we wanted people to not get discouraged by those things. And I know that honestly, with all that is going on, people are in a beaten down mode.
Yeah.
And we have to try to rise above that. And so part of the whole purpose of this was not just to inform, but to encourage people and to show them if COVID then could win, then it's our win as well. And then so we too can do stuff.
Thank you, Joy. This is Oil Talk, podcast put on by the OGGN, Oil and Gas Governance Network, 501c3 NGO. And today with me are Joy Marcus and Wintress White of Red Thread. I didn't ask you to introduce Red Thread earlier, so maybe can we talk a little bit about your organization, Red Thread, which is such a pioneer and doing such remarkable work in Guyana and globally.
Alright, so we're a grassroots women's organization, and by the way, come October this year, we will mark 40 years of our existence, and we are located in Georgetown, 72 Princess and Adelaide Street. We focus on 3 priorities that we think are critical to the lives of grassroots women. So we organize against all forms of violence, including state violence, economic violence, and violence of the environment, and domestic and sexual violence and violence against children, elderly, and so on. The other priority that we organize around is for grassroots to have, for us to have affordable access and a living wage. We need affordable access to goods and services, which has to do with housing, education, healthcare, and so on. And then we organize for grassroots to gain political visibility and voice. Not party politics we're talking here. We've been accused of many times of being affiliated to party. We're not affiliated to any political party. Our members maybe support different parties. That is not what we focus on, because people have a right to support who they want. The politics that we talk about is our existence. How are we existing in this economic crisis in this fastest growing economy. So that is the kind of politics that we focus on. How are we surviving? So and so for grassroots to have political visibilities and visibility and voice is for us to be able to speak up about the things that are bothering us and to make demands for betterment.
So you mentioned that this is the fastest growing economy. ExxonMobil, the leader of the consortium which has the concession or the license in the Stabroek Block offshore of Guyana, the arrangement they have or the contract they have gives, let's say, approximately out of every 100 barrels of oil, Guyana gets the value of 12 of those barrels. So since December 2019, or let's say from 2020, we have been this producer of oil, and it's right now Exxon is pumping every day more barrels of oil than people in Guyana, almost a million barrels of oil every day. And we have perhaps, let's say, 1 million people. We don't know because the 2022 census, the census has not been released. We've only had provisional release of census figures. That was earlier this year. We just, census hasn't been released 4 years after it's been done, which is quite remarkable for a country with less than 1 million people.
Yeah.
I don't know why the secrecy. And so, since 2020, we've been this fastest growing economy. And you mentioned some of the stories you've heard, the fish vendor who, comes upon people who can't afford the fish. And you mentioned as well the single mother with children. What are some of the other experiences you heard from other regions or outside of Georgetown to do with what it is to survive in this oil and gas economy since 2020?
Basically, we also had farmers. One of them had a semi-stroke, and he's a farmer, right, doing farming work. And he spoke about the hardship of getting to his farm because the price of the gas raised, the boat price. Every single thing raised. And sometimes he said due to lack of water, sometimes they don't get no more for crop. So it's very, very hard on him. He have a family to maintain and support. He said due to climate change, you cannot predict when to do what or when to do what. So he is thinking about quitting farming, but the big question was, what will I do? And now that he is semi-sick, because he had a slight attack of stroke, he is in really, really despair. They had most of the people there was grassroots, with a sprinkling of middle class people. And the grassroots all talk the same language. They are not coping. They can't cope. Everything high. Since you turn so, is the cost of living. That is what dominating, the cost of living. And one might say, well, we always had the cost of living, but the cost of living wasn't so high. Since the oil came into place, the cost of living triple, or always called before what,
Quadrupled.
Yes,
Quadrupled.
Yeah, it is really ridiculous. I was looking in the papers and I see a house for rent for $1 million.
1 million Guyana dollars.
I want
So $5,000 US to rent a house.
Who could afford that? It's really, really, people, listen, even after the conference finished, people were lining. People didn't want to go away, right? And so we asked the question, if it wasn't for the food, would they have stayed or would they have come? And my thing was, yes, they would have come, because I was sorry for Joy because they keep pouring in. And I said, no, we ain't got accommodation. The woman said, I can find a cousin, I can sleep. The other one said, going to the hostel. The other one said, I can find my friend house and sleep. So people were that interested, because to know that we recognize all over the world as the fastest growing economy, and yet people cannot survive. You can't send the children to school. It's ridiculous. One day I was on the fishery to buy some fish.
When you say fisheries, you mean at the Meadowbank?
Meadowbank
Fisheries Co-op.
Tell me, girl, 8 $100 per mango.
So Bangameri is a small, normally the cheapest fish in Guyana.
Cheapest fish.
A year ago, Bangameri was like 360 at the
Yeah.
most
Yeah.
dollars a pound.
I went and watched the thing, I said,
And you're saying it was $800?
800 a pound, and I shake me and I say, I can't make it. When I come to it, I can't make it. Needless I fool myself, I could not make it. So I walk in there with expectation and walk out there like a old woman because I had nothing in my hand.
For the benefit of our listeners, we've been mentioning these, trying to give you a sense of the value of the Guyana dollar versus the US dollar. So just the minimum wage for the private sector in Guyana is 60,000 Guyana dollars a month. 60,000 Guyana dollars a month, which is less than 300 US dollars. So that gives you a sense in this, the reality that Joy and Wintress are talking about, with people who are earning less than $300 a month on the coast, where the fish that comes in from the sea, Bangameri, which is the poor people's fish, costs $800 a pound.
But if you just think about, sorry, Wintress, let me just say, if you just think about what the prices are on the coast, then imagine what the prices are going to be in the interior. Because you have to take into consideration transportation to take stuff from the coast up to the interior where they don't have that there. So you just think, when we're suffering on the coast, how much more the people are suffering in their area, where transportation is difficult to get from one place to the next, especially, let's say, in Region 9. All right?
Region 9 being the Rupuluni
Right.
area, south of Guyana.
And the cost to transportation to get from one place to the other. So when you have to bring things from the coast to that area, just think about what the cost would be. Wintress, I think I caught you when you were going to say something, so sorry, but I just wanted to.
Yeah, Janet, you mentioned that we're pumping nearly 1 million barrels of oil.
Every day.
Every day. That's what they're telling us, because we don't have any, nothing to count how much barrels they really
We
take
have no
out.
independent monitoring and oversight.
No,
Right.
and it's really ridiculous because our population is poor. Majority of persons in Guyana poor. Even if some of them, some people say they're middle class, they're a little better than us, but they're doing well too. Some of them ain't doing well. You got to talk about the filthy rich. They're doing well. So I think it's really ridiculous to have such a small population getting so much oil pumping, not a responsible person. The government don't have a responsible person to check how much oil is coming out from our shore. Not a check, and that is bad.
So we just second what
It's
Exxon tell us, right?
really bad. And the greediness in Exxon. You're messing me up on the ground, and then you're messing us up when you're taking 3/4 of our money. And what
82% or
what
82
we
of every
get-
100 barrels.
Guyanese people, our education
Sorry,
system,
86.
You see,
out of
Janet,
every-
it's all well and good for you to talk about percentage and so on. Plenty of us can deal with the percentage, but we have enough common sense to know that they're taking the majority,
Yeah.
right? We really can't calculate the percentage as you, and it's good that you could do that. All we know is that they're taking the majority from
Our
us.
education system in Guyana is not good. One classroom has plenty children, and each child learn at their own pace. So if your child can learn at a fast pace, the child on its own, you got to find extra lessons and support for that child, right? So now it's putting strain on the parent. Where we have a giant multi-billionaire, trillionaire, whatever it is, robbing us blind. And nobody ain't saying nothing, not a thing. Just imagine, if they eat caviar, we paying. If their children go to the fancy school, we paying. If they sleep in the hotel, we paying. And they ain't gonna go in no Lucas hotel like me and Joy.
You go in the hotel, I'm on
Well,
that.
there's it. They're going to the 5 stars hotel and they're eating up the best, because you know why? Though they're millionaires and billionaires, it's not coming out of their pockets. Yeah, and
So Guyana reimburses all of the costs for the oil and gas that's extracted since
And
the exploration
and I think-
began in
yeah,
2009.
And I think the contract is really, I'm no lawyer. But to begin with, I don't have a legal mind. But I got a good, solid primary education to know that the contract, when it was read to me, it isn't worthwhile. I want to know how scholars, people who went and studied law, got a PhD or whatever in law, could accept that. It really, really can hold or fetch water in that. And the thing is, a government supposed to be a caring for the country and caring for the citizens. How could you make people come in, destroy the environment for one, and then destroy the country, and then destroy the people too? It can't be right. It could not be right. It's unfair. And we don't have nobody. The EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, is supposed to be protecting the environment, protecting the people, because that's what they're here for. No, they're not doing that. They're siding with the giants, the iron giants, to contaminate the environment. And it can't be fair. People, Janette, people punishing. It ain't got no if and but. People punishing. And poor people ain't eating because of for taste and all that. They're eating for full the belly. And close your eye and drink some water to wash it down. And that's how poor people are forced to live. We forced to live like sardine in a house because the house rents are there. All of us, people come together, friends, everybody for pay the one house rent. So all the spaces in the house occupied, under the table, on top of the table, on the cupboard, and over the cupboard, every
Kitchen
single
floor
space.
becomes bedroom in the night.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of people can't relate to that, but you know, it is the fact and the reality of how we're living. I just want
So
to come
before,
back to
just to say to our listeners, this is Oil Talk hosted by the Oil and Gas Governance Network. And our guests today are Red, Joy Marcus, and Wintress White. Over to you, Joy.
So I wanted to come back to Wintress mention about, and I think you mentioned about taxes. The small man pays the taxes. The small man and woman, I mean, the poor people, we, the grassroots, are paying the taxes. The people who are earning the bulk of the money and the big money, they're exempted from taxes. How could that be right? How could you? We aren't getting anything, really, and so you're taking the little from us. That is not right. Like, you know, take for example, we have been doing price monitoring in the market, so we because we know how we're affected by this, and we're highlighting it, and we're checking with people in different regions, you know, what is happening on in your area. And you know, we hear these ridiculous costs. I remember that a woman from Region 7 said to me,
So Region 7 would be Bartica area.
and so on. I hardly cook greens, and when I could afford greens, I could cook it, and I could just buy a small portion. I cook a lot of gravies, and sometimes to stretch the greens, I would have to add potatoes. And I said, why potato and not Edo? And she told me that potato is cheaper than Edo's.
So potatoes would be what in Ghana we would call the Irish potato, and that's imported, whereas Edos are local.
Yeah.
And so, Joy, you're talking about locally grown produce is more expensive than
Yes.
imported.
Like, let me just give you another example. I went to the market one day, and I was asking about the other thing you would find is that one vendor would have the same produce or same product, and there's two different prices. So for example, there was cabbage at this vendor at this stall, and the cabbage had two prices, and I asked, what's the difference between that? And what the woman said to me was, one is local and one is foreign. But of course, the foreign one was cheaper than the local one, right? And that is border market. That's just to say what, you know, the things that we go through. So the local cabbage at that time was $600 a pound, and the foreign cabbage
So
was
$600 would be,
$400 a pound.
cabbage therefore would be
Like
$3 US a pound
Yeah.
for cabbage grown in Guyana versus two something US a pound for imported cabbage. And I think that gives us a sense as well, and you can speak about it, of the inflation of everything in Guyana, all food that's locally grown and, you know.
John,
items.
you know what it is to go to the shop and buy one tennis roll? But that
So
one
tennis roll is
cut
a
in.
small bun.
And you're cutting one tennis roll to share for two people. Wintress, I'm going to put you on the spot because Wintress had a small shop, and I'm just going to give this as an example of what small business people are going through. Wintress had a shop, and people would come to the shop. It's not a big shop. She ain't got a big set of money, but when people come to buy a tennis roll to put in the child lunch kit, and then, auntie, how much for a dab of nut butter? Because just to don't give the child that bare tennis roll. Now Wintress had to learn how to sell half of an ounce of cheese. Wintress had to learn how to sell a dab of nut butter. Sometimes you can't calculate that, so you do. You just give them the nut butter and say, man, go, right? But what is it doing for her business? But as a poor woman, she understands the struggle and she is trying to help in as much as she can. So her business eventually flopped because she's not making anything. Small businesses cannot get tax returns as the big businesses.
Right.
So we really not catering for the poor class of people in this country. And that is sad. That is sad. I'm thinking of how is it that our government, and for me, when I talk about government, I don't just think about who's in power. I think about the opposition as forming part of government because they're supposed to have the interests of the people at heart and fight for the interests of the people at heart. These are people in the parliament who should get together to really decide on these budgets and not just one set of people. And when we get some ridiculous budget that we never had. Well, the highest set of budget now since we got oil.
Trillion dollar budget.
Trillion. I never hear them about $1 trillion budget before, right? And this is what we have now. And now that we have such a high budget, people are struggling more than ever before.
To the listening audience, just to say that in Guyana, the parliament, to be fair to parliamentarians, does not meet on a regular schedule. The dates when they meet are decided only by the ruling party. So we've had a situation where for 100 days, we've had no session of parliament, which means the government parliamentarians, the opposition parliamentarians, the committees have no opportunity to meet to discuss any issue vitally important to Guyana, to discuss any legislation. So I'm just trying to point out that it isn't like many organizations where we know 1 week per month, let's say the third week of every month, Parliament meets. There is no settled and shocking timetable for when the people whom we elected across Guyana, we elected parliamentarians, no schedule, independent and fixed schedule of when they meet. So this shows the way in which the country is left at ransom.
At ransom, yeah. But I just think that this is not right for us as a people. And when you take that oath, you took the oath to serve us. And what we are seeing is not people serving us, but serving themselves. They do not realize that they're accountable to us. And as we as citizens and ordinary citizens, we have to first recognize that these people are accountable to us. And we have to work together to hold them accountable. We need to put aside race, we need to put aside class, we need to put aside politics. We need to band together to ensure that we have a government that is working for us. All of us, not some of us, or not for self-service, but for all of us. And people, listen, people are afraid, yes, because of victimization. Oh, I agree with you, I support you, but I prefer to stay on the back burner because I can lose my job. And people are being threatened. We go into communities, it's difficult to organize in communities because people are being threatened to not associate with us. Once you're asking the hard questions and so on, you become a threat. But if all of us understand that the power that we have, then I think, we can begin to bring politicians in order.
Yeah.
Because at the moment, to be honest, they're out of order.
Really
Out of order, and they're living, some of them living large on our expense. We got to understand that this money is ours. People are so focused on, but we getting this little cash grant. Excuse me. If we fix the systems, then we don't have to depend on cash grant.
No.
Because cash grant is a short-term fix. We need long-term fixes. Going back to the flood, we have schools that are closed at this time, and this is time when people are children are writing exam and preparing for exams as well, right? But schools that are closed because flood. You can't get into the school because the school flooded. Why in this fast-growing economy we should have such a situation?
For
Why?
for the benefit of our listeners as well, I think I can mention that two organizations which are global, the World Bank and the these are commercial banks, Inter-American Development Bank, both have issued their evaluations of what the cost of living is. So let's just, a few years ago, but let's just take, for example, both of them say the minimum wage, or the people who are below the level of, let's say, $8 for them, both of those, $6 and $7, those are who they count as living below the poverty line. So let's say $8 by the official rate, 210 Guyana dollars for $1. That would be 1,700 Guyana dollars. These organizations say 58% of Guyanese are living on under 1,700 Guyana dollars a day. That's the poverty line. Is $1,700 can support a person for 3 meals a day and part of the rent per day?
Excuse me, it can't even give you one meal.
Janette, I go into the market with $20,000. 20,000.
20,000 Guyana dollars.
Yes, and I said, no, I'm going to buy me some stuff. When I coming out of the market, I come out of the market with 2 black bags.
2 small plastic bags.
Yeah, 2 small plastic bags. I think I rice from sugar.
No, with no staples.
No, it doesn't matter. And when I decide now to say, you know what, something might drop money or somebody take me, right? But when I go home and I put pen to paper, because now it's this way, God do. When I start calculating and adding up, I say, my God, watch how my money done. Nobody robbed me, but the money just done. Janette, sometimes I hear when you say 58%, but in my mind as a grassroots woman, I think it's more than 58%. I think it's about 60 to 65% are the Guyanese living below the poverty line. But I am wondering, going back to minimum wages, right? I'm wondering, who put this money together? Who say, well, public servants must get this kind of money?
Well, this is the private sector minimum wage.
No, I talk about the government
Yeah.
sector. Who said that? Who said, how could you come up with this kind of money? Because listen, some time back, when APNU get into power.
So APNU was the political party, and plus AFC, which the coalition,
It was a coalition.
which was in government from 2015 to 2020.
Yeah. So when they get into power, they said that they were not going to raise their pay because at the then time, public servants wanted a raise, right? A salary. So 3 months into the going, they announced that they're going to raise their salary, and not only do that, retroactively.
Like 50%.
Yes, and so I was mad because teachers out there picketing from a raise of pay and they can't get it. So I said, what? Retroactively? And to me, Janet, they don't need it because they have parliamentary money, right?
Mm-hmm.
They have minister money. They have allowances, duty-free concession, all these things
Perks,
they have.
a lot of perks.
Food allowance, jump on a plane allowance, whatever you call that.
Occasion.
garden allowance, electricity allowance, water bill allowance, and you know, and how you, with such a high salary, and all these perks, can't live on what you're earning. We expect we to live on 60,000 without no duty-free concession, without no
tax exemption,
without no all the vacation allowance and that kind of thing. They expect we must live on that. And you know what? People like to argue that poor people, you're poor where you want to the washing machine, you're poor where you want to the TV, or you're poor if you drink too big, you get money, you can drink but you can't eat. Listen, sometimes I feel like drinking rum out this country has got you depressed, really depressed, and not only about your own story. When you look around you and see what's going on, I live next door to a teacher, and this woman tell me some days she had this little boy in her class, and this little boy night outside when the other people got to lunch, them children got to lunch, he there. So they she asked me why you went to lunch, miss me lunch. She said the thing breaks your heart up because she too is a single parent struggling with 3 children, and she don't, enough time she don't have it. Good? When she get it, she'll give you something, but when she ain't got it, you can't have it.
I just want to add this thing though, that I spoke to a young lady a few days ago, and this thing is on my mind, and I've been praying for her, that a single mother, and she is contemplating ending her life because she can't make it. Now that really cuts deep for me, you know, and I've been praying for her since then. And it's on my mind. I just think I have to mention it, and I know that she is just one of many.
Yeah.
When we see people do things, we're quick to judge, but we don't know what is happening with people, and we have to understand that people have different strengths. And while some of us could bear certain things, there's some of us can't bear, because all she's thinking of, she had to leave her job because she didn't have anybody to take care of the children. She can't afford to pay daycare. But if you can't work, and the money that you're working for cannot pay daycare, and you don't have anybody to take care of your young child, then you have to leave your job. How are you surviving? So she just felt hopeless, and like there's nothing that she can do, and this is, she said, the best thing to do is to end her life.
Joy, they take care
I had another experience of you know, a mother saying, when a mother said that to me, and I said, so what will happen to the children when you're gone? And she said to me, because I thought I heard, but I wanted to hear, and she said to me, well, I'm not going to leave them to suffer. That cut really, really deep for me. At that point, a person that don't have it really, what I did was just to help her a bit, was to go out of my way and borrow to fix an immediate situation that she had, and then to beg her to hold on, and you know, I started like begging and raising funds to try to help. That is sad when you have people this fast is growing economy, people leaving a house to live in. Wintress mentioned earlier about house rent. People can't afford that. You apply for land, and I can talk about my experience now. I applied for land, and many years after, I was told that my name is not in the system, cannot be found in the system, and I have to reapply. And then I reapply and have to wait 11 years before I can get an allocation, and then another 3 years and a half before I can even see the place. And then when you see the place, then there's nothing you can do there, because one, the land is low, it's below the road, so it's swampy, so you have to find money to build that up. Then there's no water, there's no electricity in that area, and there's no proper road in that area. How are poor people supposed to survive under this condition in this so-called rich economy? How?
If I may add
So
something.
we're probably going to be doing our wrap up, and so yes, I think what's sobering for our listeners to hear today are the experiences of at least 60%, 58% according to the World Bank and the IDB, of Guyanese who are below a poverty line of 1,700 Guyana dollars or 8 US per day. And Wintress and Joy are going to give us their last reflections on this, you know, what it is to live in this fastest growing economy from oil and gas?
All right, so I will go really quickly. I just want to add something to what Joyce said. In the 70s, my father,
In the 1970s?
1970s, my father bought a house at the back of North, right?
At the back of North Rhine Belt.
North of that.
Which
When
is
we got
Georgetown.
that house, it had electricity, it had water, it had roads, it had schools, it had clinic, it had a, we call it GMC, it was a community, it had playfield and everything, compared to what you're getting now. So when you go for a house lot, it's just a round lot, nothing else. You have to do the whole works. But when my father died in the 70s, watch how long, 70s, when you go down the road, it's supposed to be developing, not go back in. So in me head, this is Guyanese language to go back in. It's a machine, right? So Janette, these times here, the times always to be short when you're warming up, because that's a grassroots people, and you're hurting for the grassroots because you yourself hurting. It's really a short time to really talk about what really the plight of grassroots people in Guyana. And not oftentimes grassroots people get to share what is happening to them. You always hear, oh, we got the nice roads and the nice schools and the nice clinic and the nice hospital. But then talking about grassroots people surviving, how grassroots people dying inside their mental stress. Not young people have mental issues. Where is it coming from? Nothing is doing to address that. Right? So there's my thoughts on the whole situation. We're living in a really depressed country where the politicians believe that they could do as they like because Guyana belongs to them.
So thank you, Wintress, and I'll give the last word to Joy of Red Thread, who are with OGGN.org today, talking about the impact and the issues from oil and gas in Guyana.
Listen, having this conversation, trust me, it's giving me a headache. Because it's really hard, and it's working to see what poor people have to go through in this country. We have been for many years calling for the powers that be to focus on people. We have, the Ministry of Finance, but not only the Ministry of Finance, but those who sitting down to put these money on pen and paper together to decide what people should live on, should first ask themselves if they can live on it. And if they cannot live on it, why do you expect us to be able to live on that? You prefer to put a lot of money, you invest more in infrastructure and into roads than you invest in people. Come on, you need to start investing into people, because if you don't invest into people and we don't have these people taken care of, then the roads make no sense. We're not saying that you don't need roads, We're not saying that, but that cannot be a priority over people and people's needs, right? You have to start focusing on your household and take into consideration the economy from an household level. Start from the house.
Yeah.
What are people's basic needs? What will this cost? Put yourself in that place. What would you eat for breakfast? How much will it cost for that breakfast that you're going to eat? And that is where you have to start from. And what will other people eat for breakfast? It's not that you could budget for eat, bacon and all these things, and I could eat dry bread and some sugar water, because it might sound ridiculous, but it is the truth and the reality that is what people are doing at this point. And some people could only afford 1 meal. You ask about the $1,700. As of yesterday, okra was $400 a pound. Think about it. And a pound of okra can carry you far. So when we're talking about nutritional meal, people can't do that. Wintress mentioned earlier, we could only eat to full belly. It's just to keep standing than to fall, but you can't keep standing on unhealthy meals either. So we have all these illnesses, and then we don't have money to deal with it. Fix the system, fix the healthcare, fix the housing system, fix the education system, fix the, what's the word I want to use? Fix the economy, fix the economic crisis. Deal with the prices in the market. If you fix those systems, your 100,000 cash grant is not needed. Spend more money on focusing on bettering the lives of people than on infrastructure. That is what we're asking for.
Yeah.
Wintress, White, Joy Marcus, this has been so educational for me. I think sobering for all the listeners today who have been with us as we discuss with our guests, Wintress White and Joy Marcus, what it is to exist, what is it to exist in an oil-rich economy in Guyana in 2026. On behalf of OGGN.org, thank you both very much.
Thank you for having us. And you know, we really need to have more people talking about what is happening to them.
Host Mike Beisho, always great to be with you as we continue to roll on.